Hi, everyone. Thank you for welcoming us so warmly. Thanks to the conference and to all of you for being here. I'm glad you're interested in what we'll be talking about today, which is the impact and necessity of storytelling through photos and film and journalism. With myself and these four panelists, who are Stefano Bellacchi, who is a freelance photographer, Nor Norin Haugen, who is an animal welfare advisor, former undercover investigator and freelancer, and Bartek Sobella, who is a freelance reporter and photographer, and Andrzej Pasgan, yes, global investigations manager at Anima International. They, instead of me just reading their bios, they're going to come up and introduce themselves for 3 to 5 minutes, and then we're going to go right into a bunch of questions that we've been discussing at length ahead of this. I do want to say, and I just wrote this down 10 minutes ago, so I'm going to read it. We know that stories have always led and held and uplifted cultures. Our movement has finally become impact-driven. This is necessary and it's overdue, but at times it seems recently that stories are being slightly overlooked. We're forgetting a little bit with this data-driven movement now that stories change hearts and minds, and we must not forget this. It's just simply very difficult to quantify the change that our work has. We literally scribbled this a few minutes ago. We simply can't know the vast majority of the thoughts and reactions and change that stories create. But we do know that stories are a vital ingredient for change. Our work inspires, it shocks, it activates, it creates moral and cultural shifts. I look forward to figuring out with all of you how we can further quantify that. But I'm really glad that we were given an opportunity here to speak about storytelling today. We will discuss the production of visuals and writing that advance the animal movement, tactics, working with media and NGO partners, as well as not working with media and NGO partners, insights into strengths and weaknesses in our tactics, getting our work to the political table, press and journalistic ethics, anecdotes, and how we might improve what we do. Now, how did I come to be the mediator here on this panel? Oh yes, I should say, some of the photos and videos in this presentation are graphic and may be disturbing to some viewers. A little bit about me. I've been an investigator for quite some time now. I'm the founder of We Animals Media, and what do? We advocate for animals through photojournalism. Our global investigations and stories expose our complex relationships with animals, create ethical and cultural shifts in society, and empower human capacity for compassion and change. So what exactly do? We make books, we make short films, we offer fellowships. We have 1 or 2 of our fellows in the room right now. We teach animal photojournalism. We partner with NGOs globally on investigations and assignments. We have about 120 contributing photographers now, which we're really, really proud of. And their work is available for all of you in your animal advocacy through our stock platform. So now we have over 30,000 photos and videos from around the world that are available for free to all of you. So please take note, if you haven't already, weanimals.org. And now I'm going to hand the floor to Stefano. And each of our panelists will speak for 3 to 5 minutes. If you see me interrupting them, it's just because I'm trying to keep things moving. Do you want to stand or do you want to sit?
I'd rather stay here.
Okay.
Well, I have to say that I'm a bit uncomfortable with such a huge crowd in front of me. So I try to make it quick. Thank you. Basically, I have not so much to say. I've been an animal rights activist for most of my life, and since 2011-ish, I'm doing photography in animal rights, like in farming and so on. And in 2017, I published a book with a philosopher that wrote about animal photojournalism, and I provided pictures for the book. And I work with different organizations as a freelance photographer, doing investigations and training new teams of investigators. So that's pretty much it. Now I'm working both on animal rights and human rights, and my focus in the recent times are living beings at sea, either humans and animals.
Stefano, you added a few slides. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the photos there?
Oh yeah, I forgot about the pictures. These pictures was taken in 2011, and it was one of the first pictures that came out from a broiler farm in Italy. And even if it's very old, I'm still attached to this because I think I was very lucky, and adds this let's say painting style that I could never replicate. I don't know how I did. You can skip. Okay. This one was an assignment for We Animals. I was in southern Italy to try to document fishing, and this was a traditional fisherman trying to sell fish to the tourists and showing them how to take out the guts, basically. Then I did a lot of pig farming with Essere Animali. This one was taken with Essere Animali. This farm here were fined because of mistreatment of animals, and the farmer got convicted somehow, I think. I don't remember exactly. It was 2014, if I will remember. And now this is basically the book that I cooperate to, and some other pictures that I took in the past years about fishing and like illegal fishing and hunting and, well, animals in farms, basically. And that's it.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bartek Sabela, and I'm a journalist, reporter, photographer, and an activist based here in Warsaw. Throughout the years, my background is not at all animal rights. Throughout the years, I was working on uncovering stories from mainly African and Asian countries, stories concerning social issues, conflicts, environmental stuff, but actually never animal rights. Anyway, I was visiting many countries, doing photos and writing reportage. I was also an activist, but again, not in the field of animal rights. I was an activist on the field of human rights. As probably you might know, between 2015 and 2023, we had a very far-right government in Poland, and they tried to steal away everything they could from us, and we had to stand up for human rights, justice, and also environment. But mainly, my main magazine that I work for is Pismo. It's not the only one, but it's my beloved one. And in 2020, when the COVID came and all the journeys became impossible, I couldn't continue my work in Africa or in Asia. We decided in the office that maybe we should do a series of texts about animals, about human relations with different sorts of animals, and of course how we abuse them. And that's how it came. We published in Pismo 5 very extensive, in-depth reportage about different kinds of animals, and surprisingly, they got a lot of attention in media. And I'm also a writer, and before, most of my books were again concerning African or Asian events. But after a series of those articles in Pismo, my publishing house came up to me and said, all right, let's do a book about it. Let's get all those texts, expand them, write more, and let's do a book. The book is called, it doesn't have an English translation so far. In Polish, it's Wędrówka tusz, which you can roughly translate to a journey of carcasses. And what was a surprise to me, it again got a lot of attention in media, and it really hit the mainstream for some reason. And eventually, it was awarded a Grand Press 2024 for the best reportage book in Poland, which was, yeah, I'm proud. Anyway, it was the first time that the book on animal rights is awarded a big prize and somehow hits the mainstream, also the mainstream media, which is, I guess, kind of a breakthrough, I can say. All right, that's it.
Hello. All right. Hi, so my name is Andrzej, and I've been working in this movement from roughly 2008 and 2009. And in that time, what I learned a lot of things, but what I didn't learn is to take decent photographs. It's like, so when Joanne asked me, like, you need to submit a photograph to introduce yourself, I was like, all right, I don't know which one to submit. So this is not a photograph, but this is a screenshot from undercover investigation that I did around 10 years ago, where I worked for 6.5 months in a lab doing brain research on monkeys. And I chose it because I think it was one of the milestone events in my activism on the one hand, and on the other hand, this is something that I learned a lot from, and an event, life event that I do return once and then once in a while and think about what happened then, and yeah, also like how can I apply the lessons. And I think so. It's quite unusual working on farm animals because every animal in that lab had a name. So this is Stella, and when I took this, when I recorded her, she was very sick. Actually, she was terminally sick from an infection that she had in this little chamber she has on her head. And when I took it, I knew exactly that this picture will become like the front picture for the campaign, which it actually did. Because what I believe a good picture is, you don't need words. You don't need to add words to describe it and for people to actually feel and see what is wrong with this picture. And basically, I think when you look at it, you can feel the pain, you can see the suffering, you can see some abnormalities going on there. So yeah, it was quite evident that I would like to submit this picture. And what followed after this investigation was like a huge campaign, like at that time one of the biggest in years in Germany where this happened, with thousands of people mobilized. Eventually, the lab closing its monkey facility, which was considered a huge success. And then when I thought about it, and what actually shaped my thinking about campaigning here is that we mobilized huge crowds of people to fight for 60 animals, because like there were like 62 animals like her inside there. We invested a lot of resources into freeing them, a lot of time, and many people cared. But if you look from an anti-speciesist point of view, or through an anti-speciesist lens, I'm not sure from today's perspective, was it the right investment? It certainly was for animals like Stella, because they don't suffer in that lab. But on the other hand, the guy who who ran this lab transferred to China and has 2,000 monkeys in his facility now, not 62. They didn't ban this kind of experiments. They still go on, just in different facilities. I don't think we changed the system. I don't think we were able. We changed lives of the monkeys in this facility, but we didn't change like future generations. And this is like what I constantly do return to thinking today. What can we do to change lives of animals in the long run? So of course these are individuals that we need and do care about, but what we need to do to change their lives like long term and yeah, forever, I think.
And that leads to your current work, which is?
Yes, and obviously this leads to my current work, which is, I'm not out in the field that much these days. I'm mostly coordinating projects. I'm thinking a lot about impact of investigations. I'm helping groups run investigations, mostly in the field of farm animals. And yeah, just obsessing about how can we get the most out of our animals from our work.
Well, thank you for obsessing about that, because we need to be doing that. It's not just about collecting the information and putting it out. It's about getting it as far as we can possibly go. So I have a list of questions I will be asking the panelists, and then we will turn it over to this machine here, which will feed me your questions. I think we're all here very interested in talking about the power of focusing on an individual animal. We know that even with humanitarian work, it's much more helpful to focus on one immigrant or refugee or abandoned child, and that reaches us quicker than a group of even 2, 5, 10, 100, 1,000. You have all touched on this. Two of you touched on this about the power of the story of the individual. Stefano, do you want to add to that?
Okay. Most of the pictures that I took in my life were focused on one individual. And this leads to think that all the industry is like referable to this individual. We can have this individual as example of how the industry works. And this is basically what every photographers do in every field. Even if we are talking about people on the move that are crossing a border, we take one story and we say to the people, okay, this is the story of a lot of people. But this leads to, for me, an ethical problem, because sometimes the organization I'm working with, they are using this image of one single animal associated to the message, for example, you can save it, be vegan. I think this one is some kind of powerful, because of course people are connected with one animal, but we are neglecting the destiny of this animal, that is to die, probably before the pictures came out in the media or in the social networks. So on one hand, I always try to be respectful for this life that we kind of exploited, because we are taking without permission the picture of this individual, and we are feeding it to the public, telling that they can save this person, but they actually cannot. So I think we have to be very careful in using the individuals, because if we were doing the same with humans, we will be very criticized. And actually animals cannot like give us the permission to do that, so we are just taking it.
Good points, thank you. Two-part question coming up. Back to Stefano again. Why should photos of brutality be artful?
Well, if we don't want people to turn their face away when they are seeing animals suffering, we should give them something to like lean to. And Very aesthetic pictures, it's something that our society is rewarding. So I think it's easier for someone that want to like face an issue, not to be like pushed away both from the cruelty of the image and from the very bad aesthetic of the image. So we are facilitating the people to stick on what they are doing if we provide them some content that it's like acceptable from the aesthetic of our society. So imagine looking to a wildlife magazine with very bad pictures. No one will be interested in what's the lion is doing the whole day. We are looking that exactly because there are beautiful pictures, and should be the same for some kind of animal rights activities, because for others we don't need that. For example, to go to a court with the evidence of mistreating, we don't need a beautiful. If we have a beautiful picture, it's even better, but it's not the first aim. We need very good pictures if we want to make a billboard in the streets or a homepage of a website. In that case, we need someone that catch the attention, and one mean to do that is to have professional pictures.
You started answering the next question, which is for Andrzej, sort of in challenging that, like who actually needs high quality images and film, and who doesn't?
So I think you're right partially, but also I'd like to, I think, spur more to it. Because if you think, for example, about our movement, like if you think of like the formative years, like 80s to maybe early 2000s, like think, like I don't know, ALF pictures, Silver Spring Monkeys, this kind of, you know, this kind of pictures or these kind of visuals. These are like super low quality pictures, like the guy in the balaclava or whatever, like shot with a calculator or whatever. So I think, of course, like technical details seem to be important and aesthetics seem to be important, but to me personally, this is just like one way to define high quality, because you can very well define high quality in a totally different way, which is like, what does it do with the receiver? And for me, with the recipient, So, and for me, it's not necessarily like the technical details, but more like the story that it tells. Like, for example, you can think of my picture, like the quality is very, very low, but still I think it transfers like a story, and it evokes probably emotions in people, and it gets them away to some extent from defeatism, I guess. Like, it instills the will to act. It kind of makes them think, like, think this is wrong, we need to change that, this is not acceptable, or ideally I would like to do something about this. And for me, this more performative impact of people, like of pictures on people, like what impact does it have on the actions on people, defines high quality, because you can have aesthetically pleasing pictures that people won't care about and won't instill any actions in them, and you can have very bad pictures that made us like stand up for animals. I don't know, I'm thinking of myself as well. I wasn't mobilized by high quality pictures, I was mobilized by low quality undercover camera footage. So
perhaps when we're using low quality footage, we really have to increase the writing, the narrative, like you did with the picture of Stella. You said it's a low quality image, but you had a great story about her. So I think that writing and story and research really has to do more heavy lifting. The campaign has to do more heavy lifting when the image isn't as high quality. Over to Bartek. Finally, we've been ignoring you. What makes a story compelling, and what makes a story flat?
It's kind of, I guess to some extent it's a bit similar with a photo. You can do it in many, many ways. It's just that the difference is that people look at an image for a short while. Okay, as you said, as Andrzej said, an image is worth more than 1,000 words, but when people read, because reading takes much more time, the story has time to sink in it, sink in you. I think it stays longer. And you have the time to think it over, to observe your emotions, while images flicker for a short while, same videos. Yeah, I'm explaining why I'm writing more than taking photos. But what makes a story comparing? I can tell you how I do it. I'm an architect by profession. I have no education in writing and journalism. I'm a self-taught journalist. I studied architecture, and actually it helped because I figured out that whatever you do as for creativity, whether you're designing a building or writing a book or painting a painting, creativity has a lot in common about the process of creating, about the process of thinking, about the outcome. And for me, to keep the reader focused on a book, on a story for a number of hours, days, or sometimes weeks, depending on how fast people read, it takes a lot of means. You have to find a way to differentiate the narrative, dynamics, perspective. You have to find the way to evoke emotions, and to also bond the reader with the story. You may do it in many ways, and for each of us, there's a different thing that is important to him, that stirs emotions, that touches him, and I think good writing and a good photo can explore these ways, and that's what I tried to do in my book, to not to keep the story flat. So, getting into details, sorry for. I tried to first make different dynamics. The story is divided into chapters, which part of it, the main chapters, are like heavy reportage stories, sometimes very brutal. And those are divided by pieces of text, which is completely different style. Sometimes it's interviews, sometimes it's a bit of my personal views and opinions. Sometimes it's a very broad look to like the very big scale, worldwide. And that alone helps to keep the dynamics. I also try to keep it with presenting different perspectives. Sometimes it's a story of a single animal, like on the photos we discussed before. But then I switch to a global perspective, numbers, heavy data, but also trying to present it in a way that people can consume it. I think in writing, it's super important the words you choose in a very single sentence. Actually, my starting point for all those articles and then the book later was industry press. When I got commissioned by Pismo to write this series of articles, first thing I did was to buy all the newspapers, Hodowca Drobiu, Hodowca Futer, and so on and so on. And I started to read it, and I was...
These are the agricultural.
Say it again?
The agricultural.
Yeah, agricultural press, yeah. And I was absolutely shocked by the language that they use. And there's probably one more thing. I was always surprised why Pismo commissions me to the subjects that I have nothing to do with. When they told me, why don't you write about animals? I thought, oh man, but I never did. I have no, okay. At that time, 2020, my only connection was that I was more or less vegetarian, but I've never did any writing about it. But then I thought that it's actually a good method, because you put someone who has a fresh view, someone who can like explore from the scratch the thing that he's going to write about, and it gives a completely different approach.
And maybe someone who's not an animal rights activist.
Probably so, yeah.
Probably so, because being in the subject for years and years, being in all those emotions, images, and problems, it changes. It changes the perspective and also the way you talk about it. And
like you didn't write a manifesto.
yeah, that's a good thing. What I never wanted to do, because of course that's not a first book about animal rights, animal issues, however you call it. There's been a number of those books also on Polish market, and I thought that I don't want to write another vegan manifesto. It has to be a very down-to-earth, very precise non-fiction stories based on number of facts, number of observations, and I want to keep it as objective as possible. Of course, you can't hide your emotions; it's impossible. And I allowed myself to put my emotions in certain pieces of these texts. Yeah.
Okay, you remember all the questions I sent you in advance?
Did I answer the question actually? Because I have
You
this
were
tendency
great.
to.
That was great. I loved it. Well, there's lots of questions, and we've only answered 5 so far. So we're going to speed up a little bit and just keep that in mind so we can get through a few more. Stefano, do you think there's ever a conflict between the goals of the photographer and the filmmaker and the needs of the NGOs you work with?
Well, there are not if you agree before.
Hey, good answer. And then we're going to go over to Andrzej to talk about that too. Oh, that's it?
That was quick, but I agree. Yeah, so I think you really don't want to follow up more? Okay. Yeah, so it's interesting because these days I'm more on the commissioning side. So I commission investigations to photojournalists like Stefano, for example, or others. And I totally agree with him because I think this is something that we as NGOs don't put enough thought into, which is which story I would like to tell. We sometimes think of investigations or investigative footage as as of a magic bullet that will just say it will solve your campaign issues. Like, quick disclaimer, it will not most of the times. But it can, obviously, if done right. But what we need to agree on to maximize the impact is what story would I like to tell? And this is something obviously on the photographers of photojournalists side, because he's the professional here. But I think what they aren't as professional as in is what story do I need to tell to advance my work, my campaign work. And this is something where we need, as Stefano said, to communicate beforehand, strategize which will be best approach. It will make the work of the people on the ground easier because they will know what to focus on. And then when you're in a farm, you can focus on a million things, have different angles, tell different stories in the same place. But if you have a clear understanding which story needs to be told, it makes the work much easier. And also another point is that sometimes, as for example with undercover investigations, you're just getting one shot to tell the story. Like when you go and visit farms, you can visit over and over again sometimes, like visit the place even twice or so, maybe 3 times. But with an undercover investigation, you're just in and then out, and that's it. You cannot ever go, or most of the times cannot go in again, especially when you have published. So you need to know exactly what you are doing and what you will be doing, and what the person who is dedicating a large chunk of their life and who is going to remember these images, what they saw forever, what they need to do for it. And I think it's also respectful towards the person who has worked, because you're using that time to the best extent. But also it just is something that you need to do if you would like to make the best use of the footage that you're going to produce.
I remember when a lot of us used to just say, okay, we're going to go to a pig farm, you know, like, let's go. And not much of a plan, a security plan, yes, but it's so important to communicate everyone, like the goals of the NGOs, the goals of the campaign. Also listen to the photographers. You're bringing a filmmaker or photographer because they have expertise, so they should also be able to say, you know, I need help with lighting, and I need this. Something that I do when I'm going into a farm for a night, or any shoot in fact, is that I'm always decided that I need to come out with 12 images that tell the whole story. And so I need photos of the individual. I need the outside of the farm. I need photos of the work being done. Probably not showing people's faces, but that's interesting to people coming back to focusing on the individual and master narratives. So I want to come out of every single shoot that, you know, if anyone looks at those 12 images in order, they will have a full understanding of what these places are like and what I did and what was like for the animals. And yes, over to Bartek now. You work by rules of ethics in journalism.
Absolutely, absolutely. I try to.
We should all aim for that. I do have a future question about that and the challenges of press ethics, but how do those bump up against the necessity of undercover work that so many of us here do, so that we have visual evidence of what happens in farms?
But first, I just want to say that I just love this picture. Who's doing this picture? Who's drawing it? I love it. In the beginning, I actually thought it's your notes for that. But coming back to your question, I see no conflict. I mean, I see undercover as an essential method of journalism, especially today, I guess. And me, myself, it wasn't necessary for me to go undercover on those texts concerning animals. When I was writing them, it was COVID time and several lockdowns. So getting to the farms and slaughterhouses was even more difficult than normally. It was my initial idea to, of course, go there and see it myself. But then I thought that actually it doesn't make sense. The number of people have done it before me, have done it better. And maybe it's better if I talk to, for example, Andrzej, which actually is in the book, so, telling his story. And so I didn't do it, but I did it before in different stories. I went undercover in Democratic Republic of Congo with diamond dealers. If I went there as a journalist, I would be completely unable to do my story. But there's numbers of areas, subjects that are completely closed for journalism. If you say that you're a journalist, you just get lost. Or even worse, you can be subject to violence or whatever. So sometimes undercover is the only way and the best way to do your job. Of course, you have to stick to certain rules, which I think the most important is to never provoke events when you are undercover. You're an observer, you're playing a role, smiling, as you said, but you're not provoking any events. It's very hard because you have to stay in the role for quite a long time. I don't know, how long have you worked there? Yeah. I was a diamond dealer for 1 month. It was totally exhausting. But I see no conflict. And number of journalism investigations that have brought a big change, that have put a light on serious abuse and serious crimes, were done in this way. I see no ethical conflict between going undercover and the journalism. I know what you want to ask about the facts, yeah? Because probably the first thing that comes up, okay, but you're not objective anymore, and you can manipulate facts. But that's a different question, because that boils down to editorial offices and their fact-checking, in fact, which is gone now. Most of the offices, newspapers, have fired down their fact-checkers. So when you come up with a text, okay, there are people who read it, but they don't check what you wrote. And number of scandals with, throughout last year have exposed that even very big names in journalism around the world wrote fictitious stories. And the fact checking is super, super important. If you have this support, and we do in both Pismo and Czarne, it's very strict on fact checking. It's super helpful for journalism. It's a big, you know, you're not alone in this. And then on the other side, the person who reads it can be 100% sure that what is there, no matter what method would use, whether you went as a journalist or an undercover, the facts are facts.
I have so much to say about this, really want to go off script, and I'm not going to, other than to say that I think we have a big job of actually challenging journalistic ethical standards.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, they should not be, most of them should be the golden rule, but not all of them. I can't tell you how many times media has said to me, this is great work, we need this work, this is important work. Oh, we're not publishing this work because you trespassed. Forget it, forget it, forget it. So okay,
well, it's a common practice. You know, when you're not working for a given office, either as a freelance or an employee, you're automatically dismissed because they want to send their journalists to get the story, of course.
Andre, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, so very loud. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts here because I cannot agree more with what you said, but I also think I think a lot of what I do has been shaped by the conviction that what we do is actually investigative journalism. So we as investigators, as undercover investigators, most specifically as well, have to abide to the rules, to a codex of journalistic scrutiny, I would say. But also, I think like the best, most influential stories journalist stories wouldn't have seen the light of the day without undercover journalism. I think like of people like Günther Wallraff, for example, who's like, I think the biggest example for me, at least, like very influential person who impersonated, he did like undercover investigations, I think in the 70s mostly. So, and there are no other ways to uncover this, and I think it is, if there were, I agree, like if you have less, I would say, invasive tactics, you should use them, but with this animal cruelty that's going behind those closed doors, there's no way you can go to an open farm event where you will see a farm where they spent a month cleaning and removing the injured animals so that you can basically have dinner on the floor of the farm. But to uncover what's really going on, like to uncover stuff what has been seen, for example, in Narun's movie, if you saw that everyone knows that this is going on, this isn't news to insiders, it's news to the public, and the public has a right to know this, to have informed choices. They have the right for this industry to be transparent, to know where the tax money is going. They have like a very high interest to know what is going on, and it's in the public interest for this to be uncovered. If there isn't any other way, I think undercover investigations are more than legitimate.
Yeah, let's put it straight. I mean, discrediting an investigation just because it was done undercover is a total nonsense.
I have such stories to tell you about that, but I won't do it now. To all of you, and for all of you, how can advocates work better with the press, and press ethics in the media? If you can answer it really quickly. Like give these people advice, like one tidbit. I think you have in a little bit. But like,
the questions for me. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's for any of you. Yeah.
On writing All Those Sex, I was like speaking to different people. On one side, it was activists. On the other end, it was farm owners, workers of slaughterhouses, and somewhere in between there was scientists and people from different offices and stuff. And I must say that the most professional of all these groups were activists. Always very well prepared, very precise, very competent about what they were saying, and also very well prepared as for written materials, reports, PDFs and stuff. So it was actually a great pleasure to work with them. On the other hand, it was very difficult to work with farm owners. Yeah, they rarely replied. So if you ask me, it was our cooperation with all sorts of organizations, both those from Poland, but also outside Poland. It was very good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we have a good variety of answers here. Andre, did you want to add to that?
On the political work?
Yeah, how to go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think in my thinking I'm going a full circle, because I'm returning to the question about high quality of footage. That maybe sometimes it is, of course, to need to run impactful media stories. It's important to have high quality footage, regardless of how you define it. But there's other kinds of footage that is important to make cases here, and this is footage that shows welfare problems that aren't that obvious, like or that aren't like visually shocking to lay people. And this is like, I don't know, really small things, like some pressure points from the bars, for example, which doesn't look painful, but it creates a lot of annoying or even higher intensity pain, which, as it adds up, leads to very brutal lives for animals. And this is not something that you can work with the media, but this is something you can use to make a case with professionals, for example, veterinarians or anyone else who can make a case to decision makers, I think. So journalism, in my opinion, is just one part of the big picture. I think you need to have like other stakeholders on board as well, and people doing this kind of work. And this is part of the photojournalist. And this is, again, coming back to another point, this is where you need to coordinate. Like in my position, I don't have to coordinate only with my campaign, but also with people, like with veterinarians, for example, to understand what are your needs, what do you need from an investigation to make a point or to have impact, like with your kind of work when talking like on a panel of veterinarians, for example. Like, do you need footage that will highlight some welfare problem that will not be interesting to someone in, I don't know, television or whatever, because it's boring and it's not obvious. And this is like, yeah, this is maybe one point that we need to think about as well. Because these people, they are going to use their networks or their influence to further our case as well, I think.
Does anyone else want to add to that?
Yesterday we had a speech about animal rights photography, and I think at some point we talked about how the different part of the movement can interact to achieve the goal that together we share. And Andrew now said something that it's peculiar to this, because I usually present myself as a photographer, but I'm mostly an investigator than a photographer, because most of my work is not just going there and taking the pictures, but also organizing the work and planning. And when I do this, well, most of the time there is other people doing this, but sometimes I do it. And when I do it, I like to explore every possibility about the subject of our investigation. So if there is some like how do you say, safety, not safety, animal welfare issues inside, we should find a way to communicate that. And asking a veterinarian how this specific issue is affecting the animal or all the animals that shows these symptoms it's something very powerful for the outcome of the investigations. If you asked me what is more important when you are doing an investigation like 5 years ago, I would said safety first. So first, remember that you have to go away safely from the place. Now, I'm not, well, we can say safety fifth, and first planning, because you can't, it's no longer the time that you go around in the countryside and see a farm and stop there and do whatever you want to do. Now we need to plan how to go in, what we want to take from this, how many different professionals we need to get the most effective things from that place. That means that maybe we just go inside once, we take some random picture, and then we show it to a team that can decide what to do with this. We need to go further, we need to inspect some specific things that we saw inside this picture or footage, or we can just go randomly as we did so far. I think the answer is always to get some people with different thought together and find out what's the best for this specific job.
Thank you. I'm going to ask one last question before we turn it over to the audience questions, and it's for Bartek. What do you think is the cultural momentum propelling the success of your journalism for animals specifically?
I think it's a number of issues. I mean, probably since like 40 years, every year we're the awareness of certain problems, environmental, animal, and number of them, is rising. We're definitely on the rise. Of course, if you look in a big scale, it's still very, very small, okay, but it's on the rise. But I think in case of Wędrówka Tusz, the important factor was actually COVID lockdowns, which first, we couldn't travel, so a lot of people decided to actually read books and articles. And then, you know, there was a lot of talk going on about the source of the epidemics. A lot of talk about the impact on our food and on farms. A lot of talk about the quality of meat, at least in Poland. I don't know if you had it outside, but we had a lot of it. And actually, a lot of people have gave up eating meat during COVID times. So I think it was an important factor, actually, that this book and these articles were published during COVID times.
I'm just sad that you didn't say because activists are so awesome.
No,
it's
but
all our hard work. No, it's a sobering answer.
No, it is. Okay, sitting here, I have to say thank you, big thank you to all the organizations that I cooperated with, both in Poland and outside Poland. You're really doing a great job, and of course, this awareness is rising because of you. Because of all those investigations.
You didn't have to say that.
No, but it's, for me, it's like obvious. Sorry.
The first answer was great as well. Thank you for that. Now I'm going to go to the audience questions. And the first one is from Tobias. It says, thank you all for your work. You are doing things that all of us appreciate so much, but that few of us could ever do. I can't imagine what you have to go through sometimes, but I hope you can do this for as long as possible. That's not a question.
Thank you.
This is a question from Laura for Anjay. Now that you are viewing investigations on a more meta level, are there any insights on how the future of investigations can continue impacting and helping animals where people don't become numb or desensitized?
Yeah, I think I have a few points here. I think it is our duty as people working with investigative footage to find possibilities to get it out there through media outlets, maybe through other channels. But it's our duty to find the most compelling stories that we can use to get through to people. And sometimes I think we're doing a lazy job here, trying to using the same angle over and over again. and not trying to talk about the same stuff in different angles. So you can talk about animal suffering by showing pictures of animals, but maybe you can also talk about animal suffering, I don't know, by telling the story of an undercover investigator. You can talk about workers' rights. You can run a story on food safety, for example, working in a cutting plant and seeing what's going on there. Like, mostly thinking about what you would like to achieve with it and finding the best story to get it. You don't always have to repeat the same thing, like animals are suffering on farms. Sometimes you can say, I know meat products have a very poor hygiene, for example, and there is like, I don't know, diseases in meat, for example. And this leads me to another thing, that how I start viewing investigations. I think that sometimes when you think of investigations, we have a very narrow look of just producing footage. And I think we need to think of them more broadly, like collecting intelligence maybe. So going to a supermarket and documenting, for example, hog burn, it's an investigation for me. Doing supply chain research is understanding where eggs are exported to, for example, being able to follow the traces of products. This is an investigation to me as well, even if we're not working with animal products. Understanding, I don't know, understanding who the middlemen are, who's benefiting, what is the leverage that we can use. This is an investigation to me as well, like having a map of the industry, understanding how the industry even looks like. This is something that I think we need to produce as investigators and work together with people who know how to exert pressure on the points that we identify.
I think we can use our creativity as well as storytellers coming back to stories. There's an infinite number of ways we can tell a story, and we should really be on our toes about not telling the same kind of formula all the time. Master narratives, I think they are a fantastic guide, and we can continue with that. But within that framework, there's just so much we can do. We can also use humor. We can also, make sure we're using the technology available to us, which is ever evolving. And Stefano, please.
I would like to add a couple of things about this, because it's not just me getting older, also the people are changing. So the people that are watching our pictures are not the same year by year. So there is the risk of desensitizing the people is for the people that already saw the image, but there are a lot of people, because people is keeping having children, and I strongly disagree with that. But as we have more people year by year, that needs of having footage that goes together with the increasing of population, it's a need. And I want to point out another thing for the previous question that was not a question. I'm really against this narrative that the people that are doing animal liberation or investigation are heroes. Almost everybody can contribute to that. If you can stay awake for partying until 5 in the morning, you can be helpful for an investigation. We need drivers, we need lookouts, we need people that stay at home and help us. So there is a lot of things to do.
Just to add one very small thing, because I agree, and as also what isn't seen as much is like other people who are doing like boring stuff, like fundraising, meeting with donors. Horrible. Like I don't like doing that, and I'm not good at that. Like, so I think that or campaigners going to a meeting with a company, meeting with someone you don't appreciate but you still meet with them and have a good conversation because you do it like to help animals. I think this is something that we need to understand, like that no people, or we shouldn't think of people that someone's doing a more important job or a less important job, but rather we're just working in different areas and we're all working towards the same goal. And I think it will lead to everyone being more happy, I think.
And about participating in the cruelty, I mean, sometimes when I buy a ticket to a zoo or a rodeo, I feel like I'm participating in the cruelty, but we have to understand that there's a huge mission here. and that's to document, and that this will be happening whether or not you use the bolt gun or whether or not I buy a ticket to the rodeo. Stefano, do you want to add to that? It's kind of what we were talking about in the car last night.
Yes, I think each of us has his own line that we don't want to cross, and for example, for me, it's actually killing animals. I cannot do like employment-based investigations because I don't want to be in charge of even compassion killing. It's too unbearable for me. So, but I'm not saying that nobody should do that. I'm just thinking that it's my my line. I know a lot of people that when I went inside a zoo to document what was happening there, and was happening terrible stuff there, criticized me because they told, okay, but you paid to go inside. You should find a way to go inside in another way. Yes, I probably could go inside somewhere and somehow else, but maybe in the night, and I couldn't see some animals because they were locked in or whatever. I don't know. So there is sometimes the need to do something in a more difficult way, but sometimes there is like a little compromise that you can do to have your life way easier, and I think this is the case.
So we just have a few minutes left. There's a question for Bartek. Do you want to continue to work on animal topics?
This subject was like a part of my job, like all the others, and for the moment the answer is no. I already switched to different stuff. Last month there was a big article in Pismo published about migration through a Polish border. Now I will be coming back to agriculture, but from a different side. Well, I will be writing about the disinformation that surrounds Green Deal, who's behind it and why it's done. So yeah, to keep it straight, no, not for the moment. And the thing is that actually the book was meant to be longer, because there were certain chapters that I had in my head. I even started writing them, working on them, but at some point I gave up. I said that I have enough and it needs to end here. I can't. It was also super emotional for me. I just couldn't take it anymore. I was super grateful, and I felt very big relief that I didn't have to go into all those other houses and farms. I eventually didn't, and it was. I'm not sure if I would be able to witness all this. Yeah.
I think many people have felt that they can't stay on the same topic their whole life, or they need to switch, and that's okay because you are creating bodies of work that continue. Hopefully your book will be translated and the films will be seen for years. The campaigns will change hearts and minds. So,
but for sure it was the most emotionally exhausting part of the work that I've ever did.
Question from Deep. Are you still here, Deep? Hey, good to see you. So the question is, how do you think about exposing legal versus illegal animal cruelty? Is there more value in showing people things that are allowed, which is surprisingly shocking enough, so it is more obvious that it is prevalent across the industry? So Noreen, you've spoken about that. Does anyone else want to add that? When I am photographing things that are legal, I always mention it in my writing and my talks that this is standard practice, which is absolutely shocking. Stefano.
Yes, for many years I was focusing on legal stuff because I think it's more valuable to tell the people that it's the normal way of treating animals. If it's shocking, and most of the things are shocking enough because people believe in the cows in the field narrative. So I was really convinced that that was the right way to tell the story. But I didn't look at the other hand, that it's the benefit that you can have as an organization by bringing a farmer in trial for illegal stuff. So I think both ways are useful for the cause. If you think that you are in a farm where something illegal happening and this illegal stuff can lead to a trial and maybe shut down the farm or fining very hard the owner, I think you should focus on that. But if you are inside a place where there are like minor offenses or something that it's not very provable, that you cannot have evidence to bring on a trial, maybe you should switch to a more wide narrative about how the industry work. And in this case, you focus on a different target, because you are not focusing to the people that can be shocked by illegal stuff. You are focusing to someone that already has some kind of knowledge and sensibility about animals.
We have time for one more of these.
Can I just add a bit to that?
Quickly,
like
yeah.
two sentences. So I think the question is slightly flawed. I think you shouldn't concentrate it on what is legal versus what is illegal, but what you think will help the animals most. And this is maybe just one point, a good way to think about it. So if you think documenting illegal stuff will be that, do it. And if not, do something else.
And build the story around it.
Yeah, and build a story around this, of course.
Last question from Axel. Maybe they are still here. And that's to Stefano. Axel wants to know about your process. Do you work with media? Do you take commissions? Oops. And or do you take photos and then try and find a place for them as a freelancer?
Well, I have to say that I'm not a good freelancer, because I'm not good in selling myself. So
that's true.
So I always say that I like to be considered like an artisan. So you go there with a specific need and you ask these people to provide it. And usually I'm very comfortable when organizations ask me, we have this project, we want to pitch this story on this media or on social media and so on. We need this. So that's my comfort zone. Sometimes, for example, outside animal rights, I'm working also in human rights with search and rescue organizations in the Mediterranean. And the media person there told me, okay, but then you pitch the story, you contact the newspapers and you send them the pictures and tell them to publish. Well, it results with zero publication, because I suck in that.
I can add a bit to this. And yeah, at We Animals, we have over 120 freelance photographers, and we need them to pitch stories to us because, you know, they're in an area and they have expertise or they have access. So pitch stories to us, please. And we also give assignments to work with our photographers, filmmakers, with NGOs. And NGOs can also come to us and say, hey, we need images of fish off the coast of Indonesia. Can you do this? So a lot of communication needs to be happening. So that's the last question, except for this one. I just want to hear from all of you. How can people follow your work? Let's start with Andrzej.
Yeah, just go to animalinternational.org. It's our website.
Great.
You find it somewhere in the care inventory or whatever.
On Instagram at Norun Haugen. Yeah.
And what about your films?
Yeah.
Ola's films.
Yeah, Ola is there. Yeah, you can get the secret lives of pigs with English subtitles. Just message me or Ola. Yeah. So, and I think we also will make it more available kind of soon. Yes, we will. So, yeah.
Great. Stefano. Stefano is available for commissions, partnerships.
I'm a carpenter as well. No, I'm joking. Well, you can find me on Instagram, of course. It's my name, Stefano Belacchi, and I also have a website, but I'm not very good in updating, so it's stuck since like a couple of years.
And Bartek.
So you can find me both on Facebook and Instagram just by the name Bartek Sabela. You can also find me on my website, which is barteksabela.com. You can find me on the publisher's website, charnet.com.pl. And you can also find me on magazinepismo.pl website for Pismo magazine.
And I will be following up with you regularly about publishing the award-winning book in English.
We have to talk about it, yeah. I have a question. Can I get this image?
It can be saved? Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much.